guys, what's up and welcome back to another Coffee Talk podcast episode. For today's podcast, I wanted to talk about cannabis, and I know that that is a very controversial topic. I live in Canada. It is legalized here in Canada. Anyone that's listening or tuning in today that maybe has a closed mind about it, either if you know that cannabis isn't your thing and you're not interested in learning more about it, then this is definitely not the episode for you. That said, if you're coming here and you're skeptical but you're willing to have an open mind, then I definitely please ask you to just activate that open mind a little bit. Just really listen to the whole episode today before you pass any sense of judgment or come to any sort of conclusion. I've done a great deal of research for today's video. I'm going to share my own experiences, my own perspectives and opinions from the good to the bad, and I'm going to share a lot of just general, objective, factual knowledge about cannabis. So just, keep that mind flourished and open. Keep that flower, keep all those petals open. Let's absorb the information and then come to conclusions. So anyways, that's my spiel. I'm going to jump in though, because I do have a lot that I want to talk to you guys about today. And this is why I love Cosmic Brews, because we can talk about things that maybe aren't so politically correct, if you will, or we talk about things that are a bit more supernatural and spiritual and things like that. So I'm definitely, not that weed is supernatural, it is somewhat spiritual, but yeah, I just really enjoy being able to talk about these kind of taboo topics with you guys. Here's how we're gonna crunch down today's chat, just to give you guys a quick little overview. First, we're going to start with what exactly is cannabis. I'm going to explain the effects of cannabis, the difference between THC and CBD and all of that. Then we're going to go into why cannabis has such a bad name and such a bad stigma, the racist history of the bad stigma and the villainization of marijuana. And then we're going to finish off with just the stereotypes, including where I kind of feel and how my experience and opinion fits into those stereotypes, and basically a final overview on how I basically implement cannabis into my life and my thoughts on the matter. So first things first, what exactly is cannabis? Now, cannabis is different than what they call marijuana, because cannabis is all of the plants that basically create cannabinoids, whereas marijuana is specifically the flower that comes from cannabis plants. Like you might hear the term weed, kush, marijuana, cannabis, all just interplaced and used at different variations, but it's really kind of, most people I think generalize all of those things to mean the exact same thing, which is pretty much weed or marijuana. Now, there are actually 3 different types of cannabinoid plants or species of cannabinoid plants, but the 2 main, I guess, popular ones that you hear about are usually the sativa plant and the indica plant. And these are known to have 2 very different effects on human beings, sativa being more energizing and indica being more calming. That said, most of the grown cannabis is actually a hybrid of the 2, so it doesn't really give you one effect or the other. And in fact, they all tend to give you, all the different strains tend to give you different effects. The reason for that is trichomes. Now, trichomes are basically like the crystals or the fuzzy part on weed or cannabis plants. And within those trichomes or the crystals, you're going to find 4 different components amongst a lot of other ones, but the 4 main ones are THC, CBD, terpenes, and flavonoids. And those 4 different things are going to make up there's like an actual term for it. I can't think of it right now, but it's basically like it creates an effect. It creates like a rippling effect of the type of experience that you're going to get or the type of reaction you might have to the different types of cannabis plants. So out of those 4 ingredients, THC and CBD are known to be cannabinoids, and flavonoids and terpenes are known to be non-cannabinoids, which means they don't have any sort of effect on you. They kind of more so create either the aroma, the smell, the color of the plant, etc., including even the taste, which is why when you start getting into different weed strands, you'll notice that a lot of them have basically been labeled under things like blueberry or chocolate or whatever, because different plants can give a different flavor and a different color and a different scent. And then when you get into the actual cannabinoids, which are THC and CBD, I think this is where people sometimes get very confused, because CBD is actually non-psychoactive. So you can actually smoke cannabis, you can vaporize it, you can have CBD oil, you can have extractions from cannabis plants that don't have any psychoactive, I'm getting too ahead of myself, that do not have any psychoactive effects. CBD is an amazing, amazing thing. A lot of people use CBD for epilepsy. It actually helps stop seizures. They use them for migraines. A lot of people use it for anxiety and insomnia, which is what I tend to use CBD for. But that said, it also has like a calming, just general effect on the body, and it's anti-inflammatory. So there's a lot of really good effects that can come from using things like CBD. Now, moving into the THC. THC is where you get that psychoactive reaction to weed. So this is where I think people either decide whether it's a good drug or it's a bad drug, because anybody that basically kind of shies away or stays away or disagrees with psychoactive drugs is not going to agree with the intake of THC. Different concentrations of THC will create different types of sedations, euphoria, paranoia, creativity. It can cause energy. It can cause like definitely different effects based on the different concentrations of THC. Now that said, THC can also be known to cause impairments in cognitive and verbal function. So that is, I feel like that also kind of plays into that stereotype about weed, where you kind of see stoners as people that are really slow and kind of slurring their words together, which can definitely be an effect of smoking weed, but it's definitely not the only effect or the most prominent effects all the time. I know many stoners that can smoke and they don't speak slowly or slur their words or kind of like slow down or have any problems with cognitive function. So I feel like that's definitely subjective to the user. Now, the common effect that needs to be done or used to actually activate all four of those ingredients is heat. So that's why you'll notice that any kind of use or ingesting of CBD, weed, THC, any of the sort, it usually comes in the form of smoking it, of burning it, of baking it, vaporizing it. It's all has to do with heat. It's taking the non-active ingredients and by heat, it's activating them so it causes the effect on your body. So that's just like an overview of what cannabis is and how it's used, and I guess just like a different breakdown. If you've ever just been curious about the drug itself, that's my umbrella knowledge, very, very simplified version. So I think it's really important that if I was gonna do a video all about cannabis and my opinion on it, my use of it, and all of that, that I definitely dove into the stigma behind marijuana. So back in the 1800s, in the United States, there was actually no federal laws against using or ingesting any kind of cannabis. In fact, the fiber from the plant was used to make things like rope, to make things like paper, to make things like clothing. And at the time, it was used as like a main component or a main ingredient to actually manufacture those things. So in the early 1900s, there was a spike or an increase of the amount of Mexican immigrants that actually moved into the United States. And with them, they brought the word marijuana and the recreational use of marijuana. The word marijuana was used and was also villainized. Why can't I get that word done today? I'm not making any sense. Vilified. Why the word was vilified? Because along with the increase of immigrants came a lot of political unrest. So then in 1937, we see Harry Anslinger, or Einslinger, I don't really know how to say his last name, and it doesn't really matter. He pretty much began what is known to be the war on drugs. He created this Marijuana Tax Act that created a ton of fear-mongering around the use of marijuana. Now, this man was incredibly racist, and he definitely had an agenda. He took a bunch of non-scientific backed facts about marijuana and then basically found a way to tie it to both the Mexican communities and the Black communities, labeling it as violent, labeling it as a gateway drug, and labeling it as just basically either what you would use if, like, for instance, a lot of the propaganda around marijuana back in the day was basically like if you smoked it, it would make you super just like aroused. It would cause people to act absolutely insane and psychotic and crazy, all the way to it would cause people to commit violent crimes, which is just clearly not the case. The other kind of like sadistic thing that he did, and intentionally did as well, was that he made sure to use the word marijuana, which again, remember, it's the Spanish word for cannabis and weed, which is further creating that tie. Yeah, this man was just not, he was kind of a piece of something. And this trickled into the effect of racism, creating a lot of extreme influence on how people basically perceived or saw weed. Don't tell me the facts, I've already made my mind up kind of mentality, that it's just horrible, needs to be stayed away from. And a lot of this fear-mongering and a lot of this racism influenced not only the public's perception on marijuana, but also even the media and how it portrayed marijuana use in a lot of the famous movies or things that you would see back in the day. So it was definitely the topic of marijuana and weed, and the context in which it was being shared or promoted around was definitely being controlled, and the narrative written was definitely not an honest and true one. It was coming from a very evil place, a very evil man that started this, but it was not just him. It takes more than just one man to do that. 1 year after that Marijuana Tax Act, it became 3 times more likely for a Black person to be arrested for any kind of charge or any kind of possession of marijuana, and it became almost 9 times more likely for anyone that was Mexican to also be getting those charges, which then moves us into the 1960s and the 1970s. This is basically the hippie era. They were against mainstream culture and powerful institutions, and were basically all about peace and not war, and being able to be conscious and to wake yourself up to the truth and to break a lot of these stigmas and the fear mongering that was basically surrounding things like marijuana, but also other psychedelic drugs. And again, created political unrest. They weren't happy with that. So because of that political unrest, in 1970, under President Nixon, there was a Controlled Substances Act that was basically created that classified marijuana as a Category 1 drug. If you want some further context as to what that means, that puts marijuana as more dangerous and more addictive than cocaine and meth. Now, since 1970, other things have changed. For instance, in the States, there have been quite a few different states that have actually legalized, if not the medical use of marijuana, even gone as far as legalizing recreational use. And like I said, I live here in Canada, where it has also been legalized for recreational use. If you clicked on today's video feeling some type of way about weed and it's tied to more of a personal experience, then fair. I think that it's super important to highlight the stigma around weed, because a lot of this negative stigma literally has come from years and history of fear-mongering and racism. So just taking a little break from today's episode, I wanted to talk to you guys about BetterHelp. If you were to just take a moment to think about it, what interferes with your overall state of happiness? Is there anything that you feel like might be preventing you from achieving your goals? I've been really open on the Coffee Talk podcasts, just as well as on my other platforms, about my struggles with mental health. And I find specifically when my mental health is extremely triggered, I find it really hard to accomplish my goals. And then on top of that, if you deal with any sense of self-esteem issues, then you start to feel really down about yourself for not achieving your goals, for not feeling happier. And that's a really toxic cycle to get stuck in. So BetterHelp actually helps you assess your needs and will match you with a licensed professional therapist. And trust me, doing this will change your life. You can connect in a safe and private online environment, which makes it super convenient. And you can start communicating with your therapist in under 24 hours. So this isn't self-help, this is actually professional counseling, and you're able to send a message to your counselor at any time. You'll be able to schedule weekly video calls or phone sessions, and you can get thoughtful responses from your therapist when you do send a message. So if you're having a day where you end up having like a panic attack, or you notice something, or you make note of something you want to talk about in your next session, you can kind of message that through so that it's like ready, and you're just keeping tabs on each other. And it's all without ever having to sit in the uncomfortable waiting room. It just makes it, like I said, just so much more convenient. So BetterHelp is actually committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches so that they make it easy and free to change counselors if you need it. Plus, it's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. The other really great thing is that the service is available for clients worldwide, and there's a broad range of expertise available, which may not be locally available in your area. Just to give you an idea of some of the things that the counselors specialize in are things like depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, sleeping, trauma, anger, family conflicts, LGBT matters, grief, self-esteem, and so much more. Plus, anything you do do share with them is confidential. It's convenient, it's professional, it's affordable, and in fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. So if you want to start living a happier life today, as a listener, you're going to be able to get 10% off your first month if you visit betterhelp.com/coffeetalk. Join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/coffeetalk. So for all of my fellow wine lovers out there, this one is totally for you. Usual Wines is a really cool brand that I want you to check out. Each bottle is a 6.3 ounce and a heavy pour, or about a glass and a half of wine. So if you live alone and you like to have a glass of wine with dinner, let's say, after accomplishing a great goal, or just in general, if you want to bring wine with you somewhere and it's just you drinking it, but you don't want to have to pour out the bottle because you aren't able to finish it, then this is definitely going to be all up your alley. Because of the single serve format of the Usual Wines and their bottle design, Usual is always fresh with no more flat bubbly or stale rosés. Plus, Usual Wines are made from world-class AVAs, and they're made with minimal intervention, 0 sugar, and 0 additives. The wine are also lower carb, like I said, have 0 grams of sugar, and Usual has a red blend, a rosé, and a sparkling white wine called Brew. They also have a limited production Brut Rosé just for the summer, and that one was my favorite. So a little fun fact is, if you're drinking wine in the US, did you know that in the US there are over 60 additives allowed by law to be used in winemaking? Usual Wines doesn't use any chemicals or sugar additives to enhance the flavors or the stability of their wine. They're truly like a clean wine brand. Now obviously grapes contain sugar, but to clarify, all Usual Wines are produced using natural sustainable grapes harvested every single fall. These grapes are picked at optimal ripeness to ensure all sugar will be fermented completely until the wines are dry with no residual sugar. So all that's left over afterwards is just delicious and clean wine. Now, like I said, the Brut Rosé was my favorite. I'm looking forward to trying the white wine though, especially, and the red one now that we're dipping into the cooler, chillier months. But if you guys want to give it a try, then just go check out their website at www.usualwines.com, and you can use my discount code Kaylin, Kalyn, for $8 off your first order and try your first glass on us. Now that we've discussed, the importance of what exactly is weed, now we understand how it works and how it affects our bodies and what gives it different tastes, flavors, and colors. We've discussed how it's basically been painted as this terrible gateway drug when that is actually definitely not the case. It doesn't cause, everything in moderation. Just like with drinking or with caffeine even, you don't want to go into excessive modes of ingesting or using. And yes, it can definitely have some negative outcomes too. Like I said, it can cause paranoia, it can cause anxiety, it can even cause psychotic breaks, again, if you're smoking too much weed or ingesting too much THC. But that said, just to put this into perspective, around 90,000 people, I think it's in the United States, but it was like around 90,000 people in the United States die every year in relation to overconsumption of alcohol. But 0, like literally there have been no documented deaths from over ingestion of weed or marijuana. A lot of the propaganda around weed and marijuana is that if you smoke weed or you smoke marijuana, you're going to become lazy, you're not going to be a contributing citizen to the public or your community or your family or to your significant other, that you'll just basically want to slow motion eat in your bed and roll around in the crumbs because your body feels different, and stare at your hands and your palms and, just drift away on a cloud, which, honestly, that sounds iconic to me for like a Sunday afternoon. But I do want to talk about the different stereotypes and how a lot of them actually aren't true. For instance, this is where I get uncomfortable because I need to input my own personal experience, but you are talking to somebody who has been incredibly productive and incredibly motivated by the use of cannabis, find rest when my insomnia is really, really bad, and find groundedness and contentment through the use of CBD. as well as even going as far as spiritual advancements and making, I guess, more, and all I mean by that, like spiritual advancements, is really just getting to know more of myself, more of me on the inside, more of the energy that takes up this body, that fills this brain, that allows me to experience my senses, to think, to emote, and all of that. And that introspection has also been enhanced through the use of things like THC. So there's definitely more people around you than you might actually think that use marijuana, especially if you live in places that it's legalized, where the reason why you wouldn't think it is because they don't fit the class stereotype that we all think of when we think of potheads or stoners. I don't know if I'd go as far as calling myself like a pothead or a stoner, but I've definitely gone through phases where phases where I would smoke literally every single day. Also taken large breaks in the past in different years, like 2017 and things like that, where I was very, like, I just didn't want to have it for a little while. Like, I felt like I needed to take a break, but that was, again, just like with drinking and caffeine, it's like you have to be able to know your limit. So you do need that self-actualization, because at the same time, even though this drug isn't actually physically addictive, it can definitely become habitually addictive. And so that's, I guess, where I'm coming from as I explain to you guys my personal experience with marijuana, because I have felt both the pros and cons, both what it's like to have or use or consume weed in a way that is actually balanced in my life versus an unbalanced, or a, like, what's a good way to put it? A dependency issue. So for the longest time, I used to feel really shameful about the fact that if I showed up to a house party, or if I was in a group setting, or it was like time to go to the bars or things like that, that most of the time I would have actually preferred to, you know, smoke and then go, then drink and go, because there's a lot of, and that's just my own personal experience due to my own conditioning around things like alcohol. I used to have a big problem with alcohol for a while, where there was even more shame and guilt that I would basically experience when I would try and drink. Really didn't enjoy being drunk, and I really didn't enjoy feeling the feeling of being drunk, but I did enjoy the feeling of being high. And I think I enjoyed it because I tend to be introspective just in my day-to-day nature. So anytime I would smoke, especially when I'd get good high quality strains like sativas and things like that, like, I turn into just this happy, bubbly person, which I actually enjoyed more than when I would become a drunk person. And that was, again, just my own personal experience. And I guess, like, I always struggled for a while, and I still kind of do, with the idea that it wasn't okay for me to say that in a group setting. Like, if everybody was drinking, I couldn't, like, partake in the celebrations, the festivities, the activities, and openly admit, like, oh, I'm okay, I don't need a drink, I'm actually just gonna take a couple puffs of my vaporizer. But now that it's been legalized, it's definitely been easier, because I think that, again, we're seeing more people come to terms with the fact that this drug is not that harmful. Now, I should put a disclaimer in here. When I say that this drug is not that harmful, we, unfortunately, due to a lot of these laws and a lot of these stigmas and things, scientists haven't been able to actually gain the proper access needed, at least in the past, in order to actually test and do different types of research in order to see the types of effects that come from marijuana. But in the tests that have already been done, it's looking like the only real effects are in cognitive function and memory, and perhaps like missing verbalization, which I feel like, you know, that happens to me, but normally it's just my anxiety. That said, if you're under the age of 21, your brain is still growing and developing. So it actually is harmful and can be detrimental to smoke a large amount and a consistent amount of weed before the age of 21, because it doesn't give, I'm remembering this very vaguely from the research that I've done, but I'm pretty sure it affected how the hippocampus of the brain grew in the teenagers, which I think just literally means that your brain isn't going to grow properly if you are abusing weed or marijuana before the age of 21. But I think after the age of 21, you know, you're a mature adult, your brain is fully grown, you have the capability and the, like, honestly, it's up to you then to decide where you stand with it, decide how you feel about it, and then go on and live your life. And not really, I guess, if you're making mature decisions and you can find a way to healthily balance it, it's literally no different than if we were to be sitting here talking about a drink, or sitting here talking about coffee, or any other kind of drug. Not to mention, I feel like there's also the stigma around marijuana, where it's like people People don't believe that it should be legalized because when people get their hands on it, it's literally just so that they can continue to get their hands on it. But we don't really put that same stigmatization or that same, I guess, pressure around pharmaceutical drugs, which are more highly addictive and detrimental, as well as, like I said, things like caffeine or drinking, whereas drinking and even caffeine, it can cause greater effects on the physical body, drinking especially, than weed really actually does. Are you looking to meal prep without all of the hassle prep plan and basically all of the annoying side of meal prepping? Because if you are, you definitely want to give HelloFresh a try. I'm sure you've heard of them because they're widely popular, but in case you haven't, you'll be able to get fresh, pre-measured ingredients with mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. It's America's #1 meal kit, and it allows you to skip all your trips to the grocery store and make cooking at home easy, fun, and affordable. So the first thing you'll get with HelloFresh is a lot more of your time, your money, and just your peace of mind back, because HelloFresh offers convenient delivery right to your doorstep with all of the recipes to follow. You don't have to worry about gaining certain ingredients, finding certain things, and all of their recipes take about 30 minutes and some are even less. You also save about 40% by using HelloFresh versus shopping at your local grocery store, and it's more convenient too. Plus, not to mention, there's variety. I feel like this is a problem that I end up having. I don't mind eating the same meal over and over again, but sometimes it's just nice to switch it up. And I feel like when you try things like HelloFresh, you try recipes that you've never tried before. They have a ton of different recipes, from ranging to vegan, vegetarian, kid-friendly recipes, just so many different things in between. Plus, they deliver fresh, high-quality, pre-portioned ingredients so that you can make these delicious meals at home. And a really fun fact is over 90% of those ingredients are actually sourced directly from growers to ensure that the freshest recipes are delivered to your door. Now, we have to talk about the sustainability thing, because HelloFresh also delivers pre-portioned ingredients so that you're not overbuying. But on top of that, the packaging HelloFresh uses to ship your food is almost entirely made from recycled or already recycled content. And I just love this. HelloFresh is also committed to giving back. They're taking extra steps to make sure that their employees and customers are safe, including contactless delivery, tamper-proof packaging, and team members' wellness checks. They also have donated over 2.5 million meals to charity in 2019, and this year they're stepping up their food donations to local communities amid the corona crisis. Now, this time around, I was able to send the HelloFresh package to a friend of mine because I was in the middle of moving, but I highly recommend trying out the sweet and spicy broccoli pepper stir fry, because that is exactly what she made and she absolutely loved it. It's spicy and it's a vegetarian recipe that they have on the website, but like I said, they have a ton of different recipes that'll totally fit whatever your cravings are. So if you want to give it a try, just go to hellofresh.com/talk80 and then use that code TALK80 to get a total of $80 off your first month. That includes free shipping on your first box. Additional restrictions might apply, but again, all you have to do is visit hellofresh.com/talk80 for more details. So ladies, let's talk about the fact that one, underwear is clearly essential, but also women empowering each other is also essential. And that's why I want to talk to you guys today about Ebby. So Ebby is this really cool, seamless underwear that leads empowering lives. You can unleash your power. You can help lift up women by subscribing to this membership, and you'll end up with undies that you're obsessed with. So a membership actually keeps your underwear drawer fresh, and it helps fund loans for women all around the world. 10% of every Ebby purchase funds business loans for women everywhere. Now, as for the underwear itself, Ebbies are seamless, effortless, and smooth. They're soft and stretched for that "am I even wearing underwear" feeling. Plus, there's no panty lines ever. The no-slip grip keeps everything in place, and it's designed to move with you from the office to the yoga studio to happy hour with your friends. Plus, they have body glorifying fits and styles in sizes from extra small all the way to 4XL. And they've literally did that with the intention of wanting all ladies to feel included in the crew. And this is highly important too. They actually use cotton lining to help keep your lady parts healthy. So if you want to get 20% off your first order, all you have to do is go to shop.join-ebby.com, and that's EBY, and then use the code COFFEE20. That's shop.join-ebby.com, and then again, the code COFFEE20. If you're still using one of the big wireless providers this year, have you asked yourself what you're paying for? Between expensive retail stores, inflated prices, and hidden fees, you're being taken advantage of because they know that you're going to pay. So enter Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile provides the same premium network coverage that you're used to, but at a fraction of the cost because everything is online. Mint Mobile saves on retail locations and overhead, then passes those savings directly to you. They make it easy to cut your wireless bill down to just $15 a month, and every plan comes with unlimited nationwide talk and text. With Mint Mobile, you can stop paying for unlimited data that you'll never use and choose with plans between 3, 8, or 12 gigabytes of 4G LTE data. And you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. So ditch your old wireless bill and then start saving with Mint Mobile. If you want to get your free wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, just go to mintmobile.com/Kaylin. That's mintmobile.com/Kaylin. Again, if you want to cut your wireless bill down to $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com-KALYN. So just to give you guys a brief summary now of my own experience, because I know we've been talking a lot and I can dive into more story times about this perhaps on my main channel. If you guys want that, let me know. If you guys want to hear about like more funny or specific stories or things like that now that we've broken the ice here. But here's my, I guess, short, brief history with marijuana or cannabis. So the first time I smoked weed, I was in high school. I believe I was in grade 10, if not, it would have been late grade 9 or summer going into grade 10. And at first, I think in grade 9, I was pretty against it, or I just kind of really didn't even care about it. Like I knew people around me did it and high school parties did it, but I just wasn't really about it. Grade 10, I don't know what happened. Actually, I do know what happened, but realistically, all that really matters is that I started acting out a little bit. And a good friend of mine at the time, she was one of my best friends. I still find her to be a very kind and warming soul, but was also going through some hard teenage times. And we just kind of like bonded over the fact that we were like, yo, weed really helps, which is not a healthy thing to do because like I said, I was under the age of 21. We didn't smoke all of the time, but we would definitely on the weekends and stuff. And after grade 10, I kind of went into a complete pendulum swing of kind of going through just like this rebellious acting out phase, like I said, to grade 11, where I was just in a completely different mindset and I decided to completely, like I remember I wasn't trying to drink at parties. I would always DD everybody. I didn't smoke weed. I remember I made my high school boyfriend feel really bad anytime he smoked weed and I shamed him, which is terrible to think about, but I did back in the day because I just basically flipped into the other mode. Basically around 2013, I started dating another longer relationship of mine, and he was 5 years older than me. We met at work and he was somebody who smoked and smoked more regularly. And at this time I would have been going on 20. So again, too young, under the age of 21. Guys, don't do as I do. I'm just telling you the truth of my story. So I started smoking when we started dating, but again, it wasn't like it was a regular thing. It was just kind of like a recreational use every other weekend or so. He had a cottage when we'd go to his cottage and things like that. And then around the age of 21, we started living together, and then we kind of like got into a routine where it was, I want to say like Friday, Saturday, Sunday type of thing. But throughout the week when we'd both be working and he was going to school and working as well, we wouldn't smoke. And at the time, I couldn't do it in front of other people. I remember for the longest time, I don't think I have a lighter here for my candle, but for the longest time, I used to be really afraid of lighters and fire, and like I wouldn't be able to like hit a lighter. And so I was just like a complete noob back in the day. And I was basically just, I felt very safe around the people that I would smoke around, which was pretty much just my boyfriend at the time and our two friends that we were really close with. They were a couple and all four of us would hang out, and they were also older than me. And I just kind of felt like we did it in such a wholesome way. Like we would like hang out at their house and just like, you know, just have like crackers and hummus and watch crime shows or things like that. So you're gonna want to skip forward to about 2016. Now at this point I'm single and I've moved into my first apartment by myself. I had moved out of my apartment with Maggie, to which actually Maggie and I skipped over that, 2015. We would also sometimes dabble, and at the time, again, it was coming from a very wholesome place. Like it would be like end of the day, we would dabble, we would smoke a little bit, listen to Taylor Swift, make our dinner, like dance around our kitchen, kitchen, and it was just like, again, just like wholesome best friend smoking vibes, and nobody knew. And then moving forward the year after that, this is where things started to get into the out of balance experience that I had with marijuana. So I moved into my first apartment by myself. Mentally, I was really struggling mental health wise 2016. Like, it's weird because you can go back and watch my videos and you would have no idea, especially because I've been rewatching some of the YouTuber videos in order to create YouTuber this year. And when I go back to 2016, it's so funny for me to watch just even my demeanor on camera, because I'm so peppy and I'm just like, hi guys, and like I talk in like a really high pitched voice. Part of it was just that I was trying to, you know, get comfortable with myself on camera. But I think also another part of it was because there was actually just like so much mental anguish I was hiding at the time. It's not a big deal. Honestly, that sounds kind of heavy, but it really just is the truth. I was mentally struggling a lot with depression and anxiety, but extreme depression. And I had gone to a few therapists from high school on, but at the time I wasn't seeing a therapist. So it really wasn't going well. Things with my family were really not going well, which was the root of a lot of the problems. And come fall, pretty much the first year I ever actually did YouTuber was when I started to use weed every single day. And we're just gonna break all the rules right now. I'm just gonna say the words that I've been beating around because I know that these words come with such harsh context and whatever, but F the stigma. I'm just gonna break it down, guys. Like, I was smoking like bongs like every single day starting in the morning, and just would like work all day, and like I hibernated. I didn't leave my house. Like, it started to become this really unhealthy habit. And it's crazy because, like I said, when you break down those stereotypes, guys, I was not smoking sitting on my couch and watching TV all day. To me, it was like this easy kept secret because my life seemed like it was still fully functioning, although I was in a lot of pain. And at that time, it no longer became something I used to engage with the world or every now and then recreationally. It became a substance that I started to rely and depend on in order to basically turn off all the pain I was feeling and focus in on the work I wanted to do. And it became a very unhealthy habit. So 2017, we're going through like a life history lesson right now, but 2017, I moved to Toronto, and that gave me that new fresh environment to really start fresh. And again, it moved back into a more recreational use. I started dating a different boyfriend that I met here in Toronto, and yeah, he also smoked very recreationally. And again, it just became back into balance and life was back on track. On the weekends, every now and then we would smoke, and I would also have some weed at home to smoke as well. But again, it would be like the odd night or so if I ever wanted to relax or be creative. But again, it wasn't a daily use. And then skip forward to 2018. And again, we have the same type of mental anguish. I'm going through some very hard, deep soul work. And it wasn't up until actually towards the end of, it would have been around this time, 2018. So about 2 years ago, that I sought out my now therapist, who has pretty much helped me work through all of this, that has led me to me being able to sit here and openly be honest and authentic and talk to you guys about it, because I do think that there is a lot of very unfair stigma around this plant, around this drug, that isn't there for things like alcohol, that if I was sitting here talking about wine, no one would really question. Meanwhile, I think that it's way less harmful and has actually also helped me. Like, I don't want to just paint it in a bad light. So yes, I'm aware of the fact that you can actually have addictive behaviors or addictive personalities with weed, but it's not physically addictive. And so I understand both sides. There's pros and cons, but just like there are pros and cons to drinking, just like there are pros and cons to even ingesting caffeine, pharmaceutical drugs, so on and so forth. So where is weed in my life now? Okay. I recently uploaded a night routine where I decided, because I do my night routines vlog style, so it doesn't mean that that's my routine every single night. I literally just show you that routine of that night. And I figured, you know what? I'm gonna include a little clip of this. And when I did, you guys actually shocked me. So many of you wrote into me just basically being like, oh my God, thank you. Like, I don't feel crazy anymore. Like, I'm a closet stoner. Or even the people that were like, I don't really agree, but I'm open to hearing more, because I asked if you guys wanted me to do this right now, like sit down and talk about it. And I was just overwhelmed with the positive reaction, because I was really uncertain of how people were going to react. But at that point, I had basically decided. When I decided to put it in the video, I decided that I was going to own who I am and I wasn't going to let anybody change my mind because, like I said, I've done my research, I've had my experiences, I know where I sit with it, I feel good about how I guess where weed sits in my life. But I was so elated when I actually saw how people reacted, because it was a pleasant surprise to see how many people were open-minded to at least hearing about it and breaking their own internalized, I guess, like imagery or meaning of what weed actually is. End of 2018, I moved into this apartment, the house that I'm in right now, with Larissa. Larissa and I, you guys probably know who I'm talking about, but if you don't, she is my best friend, as well as we work together in a lot of different ways behind the scenes. And she is actually who helped inspire me to open up more about being a weed smoker, especially a woman who's a weed smoker online, because there is nobody out there talking about it. There's nobody sharing this unbiased information, because I mean, up until me talking about my personal experience, I was trying to be as unbiased as possible because nobody's really doing that. Nobody's really talking about it. And I think that that makes sense, because there's still a lot of fear around if you get labeled or tied to a certain image or stereotype that people will, you know, cancel you or hate you or whatever the internet likes to do nowadays. But when we started living together, I was able to actually learn a lot more about weed. Larissa is, I feel like she is just like, she just knows. And now she also works for a weed company in Canada, so she knows even more now. Like if I have any weed questions or anything like that, I usually go to her, and vice versa. We enjoyed, like, it was very much like a part two or a very reflective image of when I lived with Maggie, where weed wasn't something that was necessarily problematic, but me and my best friend lived together and we would have the odd night, I would say probably a little bit more than usual, but that we would just smoke and dance around the kitchen and just hang out together and like get creative and talk about our dreams and our goals, and honestly work on our dreams and goals. So it was very much like a productive slash consumption use, but again, it was more recreational. It wasn't as much on the day to day. And then you skip forward to now, it's 2020. I live alone again. So Larissa moved out about a year ago now, kind of used it as like okay, I can start whatever type of habits I want, only ever smoking joints and vapes and yeah, and like the odd edible, but I really don't mess with edibles because I don't like how hard they hit and how long they take, and that is too much lack of control for me. So I like to smoke mainly out of my vaporizer, but I also do smoke joints as well. I don't think I could handle bongs anymore, if I'm being honest with you, because it's been so long. But I'm learning how to embrace my truth and not just believe what the vast majority of people believe, because when you actually look at the facts of marijuana, it's kind of hard to deny that if we're gonna feel okay about alcohol, then we kind of have to feel okay about weed too, unless we're literally just ignoring the facts. Now that said, I should make one last disclaimer before I go, and that's the fact that I know that I talked very openly about weed today, including my own experience in consumption and uses of marijuana and weed, but I don't want to glamorize it either. There are definitely people that just do not mix well with weed. It's not for everybody at all, and there have also been times where I have smoked too much and I've been in the wrong setting or I've been around the wrong people, and it's activated my anxiety or activated my social anxiety or triggered a panic attack. I definitely want to put that out there, because I don't want to just make it seem like weed is cool and like you should smoke weed and get creative and things, or like go on a spiritual journey, because that's definitely a fun thing that you can do if you are over the age of 21, if you are in a place where weed is legalized and that's an experience you want to introduce yourself to. That said though, I definitely don't want to make it seem like it's something that is like, I don't want to encourage any type of dependency on it and any type of glamorization or romanticization of the drug. It is still a drug. Everything in moderation. You wouldn't overdrink caffeine because that would give you a heart attack. You wouldn't overdrink alcohol because you would literally get alcohol poisoning, just like you don't want to over smoke or over intake THC or weed of any sort on a basis that is not balanced. So there you guys have it. I'm glad we've cracked the ice, guys. Now I feel like I've gotten all of the facts and broken down all of the misconceptions about weed. So now when we talk about it, you know, we can talk about all of the funny story times or just the different sides of weed. If you guys have any questions, if you have any further story times, any further information you want me to talk about, experiences you want me to talk about, including the good and the bad, definitely let me know. And like I said, I'm curious now that we've gotten through the entire chat what your guys' opinions are, so definitely leave those down below. I definitely know too that there can be people that have, again, either had bad experiences or know people that have had bad experiences. So I definitely think that, you know, your opinion, no matter what your opinion is, it doesn't have to be good. You're welcome to be as open-minded and as honest as possible, but let's just try and keep the conversations like buildable. Let's allow people to speak their mind without any sense of harsh judgments or criticisms, so that we can make the conversations proactive, you know? And aside from that, I love you guys all the way at Proxima B and back, and I will talk to all of you guys in the next coffee talk. See you guys later.